When I was a boy each week, on Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest. He would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything, everything, everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad, miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything, everything, everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. Holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips, but now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
Welcome everyone to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel. Bienvenidos todos al servicio dominical de los Unitarios Universalistas de San Miguel de Allende. I am Susan MacDonnell, and I will be our service leader today. Yo soy Susan MacDonnell y voy a servir como líder de servicio esta mañana. First, I apologize for having little or no voice. Primero pido disculpas por tener poco o ningún voz. As soon as I got to New Jersey on May 1st, the tree pollen hit me like a ton of bricks, and I have not had a voice since. This is as good as it's gotten. So I hope you can understand me today. So in this crazy heat and with our allergies and our power outages, still, we are happy to be together. Con este calor loco y con nuestras alergias y los cortes de la luz. Todavía estamos felices de estar juntos. This is a place where we can bring our whole selves and be accepted just as we are, with love and friendship. Este es un lugar donde podemos traer todo nuestro ser y ser aceptados tal como somos, con amor y amistad. After the service, those of you on Zoom, please stay connected if you like and visit with others in the main room for discussion. If you're visiting here today and you're on Zoom, you can type in your name, how you heard of us, and where you're from in the chat box so we can greet you personally later. Those who are with us at the Aldea can join us for coffee and cookies in the back there. And while you have a minute, check out the table where you'll see information about our fellowship, our activities, our new Social Justice Foundation, and how you can become a member. I don't have any separate cards for visitors, but if we have some today here with us and you'd like to stand just so we can see who you are and greet you later, that would be great. Anybody like to stand and be seen? Hola, Jose. Hola, good. Thank you. Thank you. And those of us who are members, make sure to say hi when you go for coffee. We do record our Sunday in-person services, so you can find a link to these on our website, UUFSMA.org. You can find more information about our events. You can find out all the ways you can make your yearly pledge or even weekly donations, and information and forms, I believe, on how to become a member. Before we begin this service, I'd like to have Kate Greenaway, who's the chair of our Committee on Ministry, give us an update on the Minister in Residence initiative.
Good morning, everybody. You all remember the MIR project, right? Yep. Not the MIR or MRI. We're not fundraising to put an MRI machine in the corner. This is the fund that we've been raising to bring a Spanish-speaking bicultural minister on contract to see if we can better serve and grow our Mexican membership. And I'm really excited to make a quick announcement today that we've been successful in the first of our grants. We wrote a proposal to the Southern region, which offers something called Chalice Lighter twice a year. And a Chalice Lighter grant is something that's a crowdsourcing mechanism. It goes out to the entire region and allows separate congregations or individual donors called Chalice Lighters to contribute to our cause. They found our idea worthy and exciting, and they have put us only forward for this round of donations. So we have potentially additions coming into the funds we're raising for that project. So stay tuned. It's going to get even more exciting from here.
That is great news. Thank you, Kate. And there is lots of information about the MRI. The MIR, you did that, initiative on the website. So I will invite Sebastian to come up and help me with chalice lighting this morning. Just that for now. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful faces and complex natures, so that creation need not play to an empty house. Those are the words of Annie Dillard. In Spanish, oh my goodness, Diego and I worked on a Spanish translation. Let's see how it sounds. Estamos aquí para instigar la creación y ser testigos de ella, y ver cada rostro hermoso y su compleja naturaleza, para que la creación no se presente sin público. How did that come across? Thank you, Sebastian. Let's join our voices together. If you would rise, and we will sing along with the welcoming hymn video, Wake Now My Senses. Remain standing for the covenant. Now I invite you all to join me in the recitation of our covenant in English, and then afterwards with Anne in Spanish. The words will appear on your screen. Are they there now? They're there. Just thought I would check. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Thank you all. We now enter into a special time in our service, a time when members and friends can share with our community significant joys, sorrows, and concerns that they are experiencing. If you'd like to share a joy or concern in a future service, please feel free to send an email to Tom Rosiello before next weekend. If you're on Zoom, you can enter it into the chat box, and Sophia will watch for it and bring them up to me if we can catch them. So we actually don't have any special joys and concerns yet that we've been given by those of you coming in person. Perhaps we'll get some on chat. So I will start right away with the two that we light each week, remembering and just giving our energy and our peaceful prayers and hopes for the end to these terrible wars of destruction. We light our blue and yellow candle for the people of Ukraine, now in their third year of the unprovoked invasion by Russia. We express our sorrow for all the lives lost on both sides and for the refugees from this violent war, from all the wars around our hurting globe. We light a special candle, just one of these, for the Israeli civilians killed and captured by Hamas on October 7th, and for the tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians, mostly children, women, and the elderly who have been killed in the many indiscriminate bombings of civilian areas of Gaza. Our hearts are broken that this continues so many months after. I don't see Sophia waving to me for any additional joys and concerns. So I'll end with this, that our final candle is for all the joys, sorrows, and concerns you might be holding in your own heart, that might be on your mind, your heart during the week, family or friends, or your own health. Any that you haven't shared with us today, but are holding for yourself and your loved ones. During our musical meditation, you can come forward in silence. Sebastian or I will hand you a candle, and you can light your own candle of joy or concern. So this morning, for our second, I think, informal service, led by members and past members of the board, Geyer decided she would really like to talk about the history and the contribution that Unitarian Universalists have made over the years, especially after the end of World War II, during the formation of the United Nations and the development of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. So please enjoy this brief introduction to the UU Service Committee's history with the UN Declaration of Human Rights to give you a little bit of context for Anne's later presentation.
Hello, friends. I'm Laura Randall, a minister on staff at the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC. Today, I would like to share with you a bit about the founding of UUSC and the United Nations, and how the aspirations present at the founding of these two institutions still speak to us today in our quest for global solidarity and universal human rights. The history of UUSC and the United Nations are closely linked, as both institutions emerged as a response to the horrors of the Second World War. In 1939, the American Unitarian Association reached out to dozens of ministers to see if anyone was willing to travel to Europe to see what could be done to get people being targeted by the Nazis to safety. The Reverend Waitstill Sharp and his wife, Martha Sharp, were among the few who said yes. They left their young children with church members and journeyed to Czechoslovakia, where they partnered with Jewish organizations and members of the Unitarian Church in Prague to get supplies and paperwork to as many people as possible. When Martha and Waitstill Sharp opened the first office of the USC in Prague, they met an embattled Unitarian community at the Unitaria Church that had to preach their opposition to the Nazis in double meanings. During the German occupation of the city, the Nazi secret police began monitoring every sermon given at the Unitarian congregation, listening for subtle messages of dissent. A few years later, they found what they were looking for. In 1941, the minister of the Unitaria congregation, Norbert Čepek, was arrested and deported to the concentration camp in Dachau, where he was killed with poison gas the following fall. Čepek wasn't the only figure associated with the founding of USC to make the ultimate sacrifice for human rights. USC's work in Prague involved helping refugees apply for visas and process other paperwork they would need to seek safety abroad. Similar to UUSC's current model of partnering directly with impacted communities, many of the service committee's first employees were Jewish refugees, working to protect the rights of their community. At the time, Jewish people in Prague were already facing persecution under the Nazi occupation, and all the warning signs of the coming genocide were in place. They therefore knew the risks they took by staying in the city to help others. Elsewhere in Europe at the same time, the Reverend Charles Ryn Joy was sent by the newly created Unitarian Service Committee to Lisbon, Portugal, which was the only open port in Europe at the time and saw many refugees that were fleeing the Nazi regime. Many of the refugees had to flee without any of the identification papers that were required to cross borders. So Joy decided to start making identifications issued by the USC itself. He decided these papers needed a seal to look as official as other travel papers. So we asked Hans Dusch, an Austrian refugee and artist working in Lisbon, to create one. And the result was the basis of the flaming chalice as we know it now. So you see, the thing that binds us all as Unitarian Universalists, the chalice, was founded on our commitment to human rights and to fighting fascism. Since the founding of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, we've been committed to supporting the work of liberation, even when, maybe especially when, it involves defying the powers that would deny anyone's full humanity. The story of the founding of UUSC is one of imagination, action, and hope. Unitarians at the time were called to act in the face of rising Nazi repression and US isolationism. They believed that by partnering with those most directly impacted by injustice, that a world where everyone's rights were honored and protected was a possibility. And it is out of this belief that they chose to form and support the Unitarian Service Committee. The founding of the United Nations came from a similar belief in the power of global cooperation and solidarity. The United Nations grew from an international desire for peace following the devastation of World War II. Representatives from 50 nations gathered in early 1945 for the United Nations Conference on International Organization. For 2 months, these representatives worked to draft and then sign the UN Charter, which created the United Nations as a new organization. The primary goal of the UN, as stated in the Charter, is to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to humankind, and to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of all people and of nations large and small. Worthy guiding principles, to be sure, and the young United Nations soon decided they needed to delineate and affirm the fundamental human rights they spoke of in their charter. They wanted a roadmap that would guarantee the rights of everyone, everywhere. Thus, the process of creating the Universal Declaration of Human Rights began in 1946 and was adopted by the UN General Assembly on December 10, 1948. Hernan Santa Cruz of Chile, a member of the drafting subcommittee, wrote of that experience, "I perceived clearly that I was participating in a truly significant historic event in which a consensus had been reached as to the supreme human value of the human person, a value that did not originate in the decision of a worldly power, but rather in the fact of existing, which gave rise to the inalienable right to live free from want and oppression and to fully develop one's personality. In the Great Hall, there was an atmosphere of genuine solidarity." The Articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights lay out such crucial rights as the right to be free from violence, the right to seek asylum, freedom of expression, the right to form unions, the right to education, and many, many more. These rights are both fundamental and inherent, and also aspirational. They are supposed to be innate by virtue of being a human person, and at the same time, these rights are not honored for all people or by all people. This was the case in 1948, and it is the case now. It's important to remember that the people who created these institutions, the Unitarians who formed the Service Committee, and the national representatives who formed the United Nations, were people like you and me. They were also worried about their jobs and children and bills in the future. They were also overwhelmed by the state of the world in a time of fascism and war, anti-Semitism and racism, just like us. And when the opportunity rose for them to make a difference and affirm the inherent worth and dignity of all people across the world, they took action with their time, with their money, with their influence, and we can do the same. I know sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, things can feel hopeless, like the world is moving further and further away from our values, from all the progress that we've tried to make. But at the same time, the welcoming table of our faith has grown larger. More of us have come to know and experience the incredible diversity and beauty possible in being embodied humans in community together. We have come as far as we have because justice seekers throughout time have continued to join in solidarity with each other to follow the roadmap of universal human rights, to expand who is included, to question what we assume, to keep reaching towards another possible world. May it continue to be so.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you this morning. This morning's prelude hymn, Holy Now, by Peter Mayer, which is one of my favorites, obviously, always causes me to stop and reflect on how differently I see the world today from the way I saw it as a child and later teenager growing up in suburban Southern California during the post-World War II years. It also reminds me of how fortunate I was to discover Unitarian Universalism 25 years ago. Similarly, the video we just watched about the creation of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, the United Nations, and the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights reminds me of both the hopes and fears we faced during the 1950s, 60s, and beyond. As young people, our lives were enhanced by all kinds of modern inventions and distractions like refrigerators, telephones, television, and especially rock and roll music. But during those same years, we also lived in the shadow of the Cold War and the ever-present fear of nuclear annihilation. I'm sure some of you remember hiding under your desks when the air raid sirens went off once a week, and how well I remember huddling in fear on the high school grounds with my friends during those scary, scary days of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Threats such as these loomed large and seemed pretty hopeless to me at the time. And then there was the Vietnam War. Like Peter Mayer, I was raised in the Roman Catholic faith and left it as an adult. It was actually a question of human rights that caused me to make that decision. I simply could no longer tolerate hearing our longtime pastor, Father Ryan, preach about the righteousness of the Vietnam War from the pulpit, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. How, I asked myself, could a priest, someone who taught us that Jesus loves the little children, also preach that it's okay to drop bombs on them? It became ultimately morally repugnant to me, so I stopped attending. Indeed, I missed having a spiritual home after that. And I really envied people who truly believed in a God who answered your prayers and brought comfort and solace during life's difficult times. For a few years, I sampled masses here and there at other Catholic churches, both in the US and Mexico, but the faith no longer worked for me. Logic was part of it, just growing up and being more logical. And ultimately, my broader understanding of human rights and equality was inconsistent with Catholic doctrine. But along the way, I found some pretty good substitutes in my life. During the early 1980s, while working at a daily newspaper in Mexico City, I began paying close attention to the deteriorating human rights situation in Central America. Soon, I started paying attention to human rights conditions around the world. Before long, human rights essentially became my new religion. What could be more important, I thought, than working to alleviate suffering? In fact, I became so committed to promoting and protecting human rights that I even went back to university at 40 years old to get a graduate degree in it. Much of the human rights work I've done over the years was with Amnesty International, where I worked in many different capacities in both the US and Mexico. Everything from working, this is an exciting thing, working on the 1988 Human Rights Now World Concert Tour, which was actually organized to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everything from that to writing individual letters and letters and letters to foreign governments on behalf of prisoners of conscience to actually teaching human rights. During the mid-1990s, my local Amnesty International group in Texas partnered with a large social service NGO in Houston in a program we called the Overcoming Prejudice Project. It brought free human rights classes to people of all ages in local religious congregations, YMCA programs, schools, and other community groups, basically anyone who would listen to us. Those of you who know how much I enjoy teaching UU values to our young explorers like our man Sebastian, who just lit the chalice, you won't be surprised to learn that human rights education has been very fulfilling to me. Although I must admit that meeting former prisoners and torture victims who have finally been released has also been very gratifying. Someone I worked with on the Overcoming Prejudice project introduced me to Unitarian Universalism in 1999. I wasn't terribly interested in religion by that time, but I loved hanging out with this friend. So I dragged my husband and daughter to her congregation the following Sunday. In true UU fashion, it was a little breakaway group from an older, more established UU church in the same community. Something about theists versus humanists, which I didn't quite understand at the time. But I was astounded by how much I felt at home with these like-minded people, in Texas, no less. And that was just the beginning. The more I learned about Unitarian Universalism, the more I realized that this was the spirituality I'd been missing for so long. A couple of years later, I invited a longtime friend from Amnesty International to attend the child dedication of our baby son at, by now, the more established UU church in that community, where we were now members. As you might not be surprised, by then, most of the breakaway UUs had returned to that church, happy with the new minister. After the service, the friend I'd invited was just gushing, and she proclaimed, "I love this church. If Amnesty were a church, this would be it." I thought, yes, you're right. Maybe I'm come full circle. Before closing, I'd like to just briefly touch on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was featured in the video. Why? Because it's considered by many to be the most important human rights document ever written, although some might argue the Magna Carta was that. But in our age, I say it's the UDHR. It consists of 30 articles that spell out the most important rights and freedoms that anyone, anywhere on the planet, should be entitled to enjoy simply by virtue of being a human being. It's also important to point out that it was drafted by representatives from very different legal and cultural backgrounds from all over the world. So it's not just a white European US document. It really was produced by all races, all nationalities. The rights and freedoms, as we learned a bit ago, enshrined in this important document include some of the most obvious, such as the right to life, liberty, equality, freedom of expression and belief, as well as the right to be free from slavery, torture, arbitrary arrest, and discrimination. It also covers some other rights and freedoms that may not seem as obvious, such as the right to privacy, education, an adequate standard of living, and the right to participate in the cultural life of a community and one's culture. While the Declaration itself is not a binding document, it is the basis for two of the most important international human rights treaties, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Well, and these two treaties have been adopted by most countries in the world. And it's also the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It also forms the basis of many, many other regional treaties, like from the Organization of American States or the European Union. So it really has been implemented in a broad way. And that's it in a nutshell. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much, Anne. A wonderful delivery, and wonderful to know more about your personal and spiritual connection to the work you've done all your life on human rights. We'll move now to our offering. And I would like to offer these words by Heather Christensen, a Unitarian Universalist minister, somewhere in the US, though I haven't been able to figure out exactly where. Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is embodied in large congregations, numerous mid-sized congregations, and many small ones as well. No matter its size, every congregation depends on each of its members. Each of one of you, by your commitment of time and energy and resources, helps make the grand vision of Unitarian Universalism real. Individually and together, we are Unitarian Universalists, building a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. When the basket reaches you, we invite you to make an offering in any amount, a peso, 20, 50, whatever you can joyfully offer. Every offering adds to the whole and helps our fellowship grow and thrive. The offering will now be gratefully received. Enjoy the offering music. Love will guide us.
Has tried us, hope inside us, will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like
Thank you. Now, I know we've had a lot of video music today. It's very helpful, I think, to see the lyrics and hear the music. We'd like to end with our final hymn, one of our favorites, and this is, I believe, sung by Paul Mayer, who sung the opening hymn as well. Everything is holy now. So I invite you to remain seated so you can enjoy the video images of our very own celestial blue home and join in the song. The lyrics will appear with the video.
Standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Thank you. Diego on here. I gotta thank you. Diego, thank you.
Getting ready. Thank you for coming to today's service. It's one of the cool places in town, literally. We will close today, which is focused on the primacy of the rights of all people to live full and free lives, with this quote from Emma Goldman, a Lithuanian-born American political activist and one of the most important thinkers in the political anarchy movement of the early 20th century. She said, "Someday men and women will rise. They will reach the mountain peak. They will meet big and strong and free, ready to receive, to partake, and to bask in the golden rays of love. What fancy, what imagination, what poetic genius can foresee the potentialities of such a force in the life of men and women? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again. Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez. Thank you y gracias. Thank you all.